Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Korman Productions, here to talk about This Is Us, Season 1, Episode 11, The Right Thing to Do. New episodes start back tomorrow, theoretically speaking, of course. So, once again, this will be the last rewatch video for a while. Before moving forward, I will tell you that this is not a spoiler-free video, so if you have not yet watched the episode, stop and then go watch, and then come back and watch this video. And if you like this video and my content, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Now, this episode I did not particularly care for. It's definitely on the lower tier scale of This Is Us episodes. The Jack story in the past timeline is for the most part pretty good. Present day, however, was quite a bit iffier. I won't mince words here. I hated the Kevin story in this episode. It had some of the same problems that the Trip had, which was Season 1, Episode 9. As a result, Kevin is getting the old skip routine this week. Don't mind me, this is just me skipping his scenes. To summarize, he and Sloane are now quasi-dating, prepared to put on the play themselves. When who should reappear but Olivia, who apparently was on some kind of quest to improve herself. She's ready to get back to work on the play and to get back with Kevin, setting up his dilemma to choose between two beautiful women. Aw, poor Kevin. If he's smart, his decision would be easy. He would choose Sloane. And as it turns out, he did so. And while being smart, he was also very, very dumb. In his speech to Olivia, he said, "Sometimes you gotta do the right thing, even if it's not what you want to do." Neither Sloane nor myself were too impressed by this speech. Now, for the rest of the episode, I will mostly be ignoring Kevin. He doesn't not exist. I don't care if you give me the puppy dog eyes. I am not talking about you, Kevin. And nor am I sleeping with you, as usual. I know you're disappointed, but you need to move on. There will be plenty of other willing partners. As far as the rest of the episode goes, it's a bunch of mediocre scenes with one incredible scene that makes it almost worth the price of admission. If you only had one scene and you just played that, and that was the episode, this would be the best episode ever. But then again, you'd have people wondering where the rest of the episode went. We open up in the past timeline where Stanley Pearson, Jack's dad, is getting into it with Jack's mother, and it seems like things are about to turn violent. Jack's dad is played by Peter Nardi, who we've seen a couple of times in this series. Young Jack, played by Darren Barnett, intervenes. Interesting to note that for the rest of the time that we see a younger Jack, he's played by Miles Ventimiglia and not a different actor like he is here. Peter approaches Jack, or rather, Stanley approaches Jack and says to him, "Oh, is this your big moment?" And I thought he was actually going to strike Jack here, but he simply sneers and says, "You two deserve each other." We cut into a little bit more in the future with Jack and Rebecca before the babies were born, before they knew they were going to have triplets. They're looking at a place to rent, which Jack has already put first, last, and the security deposit down. They're all happy until they visit the doctor and get the news that their lives are going to be a little bit more complicated with a third baby. We cut to a scene with Dr. K. and Jack and Rebecca's doctor, who's telling them about Jack and Rebecca. And Dr. K says, triplets. Always a headache. I'm just glad they're your patients and not mine. Cue the credits. That was more like a typical cold open for a show. When we come back, we are at the hospital, a flurry of activity. We think this has something to do with Toby, but as it turns out, it has absolutely nothing to do with Toby. Toby is awake, and Kate is bringing him coffee. And Toby is telling jokes. Bad ones. As he will do throughout the episode. Throughout the series here. But this tendency cuts down on the drama a little bit of his situation. But at the same time, that's Toby's character. He's terrified here. And he's only going to get more so as the episode progresses. And when Toby is scared, he makes bad jokes to cover himself. And that's one of the reasons why I relate to him quite a bit, because I do something similar. It still makes his scenes kind of irritating in this episode, while being completely true to his character. Cut to a scene of Sloane and Kevin acting like a couple of teenagers coming upstairs in Beth's house in a scene that I'm mostly not going to talk about because Kevin doesn't exist to me right now. The only reason I'm talking about it is because there's a couple little nuggets of interest in this scene, including Kevin asking William about the sequel to Beginners, a movie about a guy who comes out later in life. William chuckles, and Kevin says, I say that because you're gay now? And William is like, I'm not gay now. I've always loved women and men. And you know, a lot of artists believe that sexuality isn't fixed, but more fluid. Randall comes down the stairs, having heard the words fluid, and wanting to know what they're talking about. And Kevin helpfully tells him that their bio dad, or rather Randall's bio dad, is only half gay, which again makes William laugh. Randall changes the subject to dim sum, saying he's thinking about getting some dim sum for dinner. And William says that he won't be around tonight. He'll be with Jesse. William says that he can reschedule, and Randall says, No, you and Jesse do your thing. And then he does a Seinfeld impression, no soup for you, or something along those lines, which only gets mildly amused reactions from the people in the room. Just like any time Randall tries to tell a joke, really. I feel you on that, Randall. I feel that in my soul. Cut to Rebecca and Jack, who have just put a down payment on a house that they're probably not even going to be able to afford because of the third baby. And Jack is likely not going to be getting his security back. Rebecca suggests crying, and Jack says he already tried. Okay, Jack, maybe you did that or maybe you didn't, but I think Rebecca would probably be a little bit more likely to get that done. Nice try, though. Jack tells her, don't worry, he will figure something out. Cut to Beth when Randall enters the room, and Beth is trying to be all sexy, trying to get him to take a bath with her. But Randall is in Randall land, and he says, why am I so thrown by Jesse and William? Am I homophobic? Well, wouldn't you know the answer to that, Randall? Wouldn't you have some inkling of that? And Beth simply says that Randall thought he was getting to know the man, and then he had a curveball thrown at him. She suggests that the next time Jesse comes up to pick up William, that he get to know the man, and maybe it'll make him feel more comfortable. And what's interesting to me is that Randall's dilemma throughout the entire episode leads to a scene that has absolutely nothing to do with finding out that William is bi or gay or whatever. It's an entirely different conflict. And this scene ends with Beth getting what she wants. Cut to the hospital where Toby is trying to play strip poker with Kate. The doctor comes into the office, or rather hospital room, it's not an office, and makes jokes, to which Toby responds, "I hate bunny doctors." That's kind of rich coming from you. The doctor wants to inform him of a problem. The doctor tells him about a defect that many choose not to repair. They go to the medication route, but the doctor is highly recommending surgery. We cut to Jack arriving to his work site, where he's working on a house. A guy asks about his car, asking if he ever thought about selling it. He says he might, but not today. Jack sees his boss, who he called down there to ask for a raise because of his situation. And the guy says he'll bump him up to $17,000 a year. $17,000. Yeah, right now I work at Dunkin' Donuts, roughly 40 hours a week, sometimes a little bit less. And I made $22,000 last year, and I barely make it with just the one kid that I don't even live with. Now, granted, this is a much earlier time frame. In fact, I think they said the cost of the apartment was $200, which, if that were the cost today, I would take that in a heartbeat. But I can't imagine, even back then, that $17,000 would have gotten him very far. Definitely not with triplets. One baby is expensive. Never mind 3. Cut to several Kevin and Sloan scenes that I am skipping because I am completely ignoring your character this week. After those scenes are over, we're back in the hospital with Toby and Kate. And Kate is asking, how soon can they operate? And the doctor says that he can get him in pretty soon, but he has to commit now. And Toby is very reluctant to do it. He says he'll pass. And Kate is like, whoa, we should talk about this. Toby's like, there's nothing to talk about. He said that I can go the medication route, and that's the way I'm going to go. Kate calls him a child. They start to get into it a little bit. The doctor takes that moment to leave. And then Kate pretty much decides to leave the room. And Toby's like, whoa, where are you going? Kate says, it's either I leave or I yell at a sick, dying man, or whatever she says. This is not Kate's finest hour. Okay, look, Kate, the whole surgery thing, it's not as cut and dried as you were making it out to be. You could die during the surgery. You could die during any surgery. And not everybody is so willing, like yourself, to undergo those risks. I honestly don't know what would be better for Toby here. I don't. But what you should have done is you should have stayed, maybe dropped the subject for a little bit, and then come back to it and tried to sweet talk him or convince him to your point of view that surgery is for the best and what Toby should do. Instead, Toby mildly objects to the surgery and you throw a snit and leave. Like I said, not Kate's finest moment there. And she almost ended up in the naughty corner where I have Kevin as a result. Cut to Rebecca having lunch with her mother, played by Elizabeth Perkins, the always pleasant mother of Rebecca. I'm going to throw out a wild theory here that absolutely is exercise anyway. Just imagine that this is the same character that co-starred with Tom Hanks in Big. And her entire character has grown up to be bitter because Tom Hanks, her lover, turned out to be a 12-year-old boy who wished he was big. She ended up traumatized for life and changing her name. But she's rich, so there's that. Rebecca shares the news of the third twin. Her mom does not react thrilled to this and takes this moment to bash Jack as a man, saying he's irresponsible, can't even get somebody pregnant responsibly. Rebecca says that he does okay money-wise. And her mother says, not well enough for this. So what are you going to do? You have no idea, do you? Fortunately, I do. Cut to Jesse getting ready to pick up William. And Randall has decided to take Beth's advice and get to know the man. He offers him some alcohol and then realizes stupidly that Jesse is an addict and that that's a bad idea. The attempt to get to know the man doesn't actually go very well. And when William comes down the stairs, he says that he won't be coming back tonight. And when Randall asks him if he'll be back the next day, William says that he'll play it by ear. Randall does not seem comforted after this scene finishes playing out. Cut back to Toby. Kate enters the scene having gotten a text message with a bunch of sad faces and crying faces telling her to get back to his room. Toby has decided to go ahead with the surgery. And Kate's all like, oh, well, we could have talked about that. If you wanted to talk about that, you should have stayed in the room. But, we're moving on here. Toby's getting prepped for surgery, and he's making jokes and light of the situation and being very irritating. In fact, his joke level is up to level 10. And that's, once again, largely because he's completely terrified. He tells her that he loves her in case he doesn't get to because he might die during surgery. And Kate doesn't end up saying it back, just assuring him that nothing bad is going to happen. Cut to Randall, Kate, and Kevin in the waiting room. Oh, hey there, Kevin. I'm acknowledging your existence again just for this one scene. Kate is pretty much chewing on the fact that he said, I love you, and she did not say it. And it might be the last time that she'll have an opportunity to do so because he might die. She wants a distraction. Randall starts to tell a story, and Kate quickly waves him off. And then Kevin starts speaking about his dilemma, and you know how much I care about that. Randall quickly has enough of this, saying, two beautiful women wanting you is not a problem. And I agree with you, which is why I spent the last 20 minutes ignoring Kevin's existence. Randall says that that's not a problem. What is a problem is your dying biological father suddenly turning gay. Well, he was already gay, but, whatever. And why is that a problem? Kate asks. And Randall doesn't know. Kate says, we are a hot mess. They all agree. And Randall quietly says, Big Three. And they cheer with coffee cups. Cut to Rebecca and Jack. Rebecca coming home, I presume, from her lunch with her mother. Jack is looking at his finances. Rebecca says that her mom came up with an interesting idea that she hopes Jack will take into consideration and with an open mind. And she barely seems to be keeping it together throughout this entire scene. She looks like she's on the verge of crying while trying not to look like she's on the verge of crying. And I haven't said it in a while, but Mandy Moore is an amazing actress. Kevin is skeptical of the whole moving in with her mother thing because her mother drives her nuts. Oh, and there's also the little matter of the fact that Rebecca's dad was trying to break them apart. And last we saw, which granted isn't till season 4, but it's around this time frame, Jack and her dad did not get along too well. But that doesn't come up at all. Because, they haven't actually figured that part out yet. Rebecca says that she needs ice cream. She needs Jack to go get her ice cream. Which is a pretext to get Jack out the door so that she can start sobbing uncontrollably, without Jack knowing. Jack forgets his keys, goes back into the apartment, hears Rebecca crying, and then quietly tries to come back into the house, pretending like he just came in and did not notice her crying. Gets the keys, tells Rebecca that he will now go and get her ice cream, and takes off. But he decides to go somewhere else. And that somewhere else is to see his dad. For several minutes after, we're in some kind of void of nothingness, known as cabin scenes, that I am completely ignoring. When we get past that, we are back with Kate and Toby. Toby is unconscious, or pretending to be so, and Kate is professing her love. Toby says, groggily, that he would totally marry her if that was something that she was down for. And Kate's like, you would? Toby says, of course. It's always been you, kid. Cut to the one knockout scene of the episode, with William returning home, while Randall is in his study, I'm guessing. Randall asks him, do you think we bonded? Because since you moved in, I kind of thought we had. William seems perplexed by the question, but simply answers, sure. Randall asks, then why is it so easy for you to push me to the side? Me, Beth, me and Beth, the girls. Ever since Jesse came back into your life, it's like you don't seem to care about spending time with us. And I'm not trying to act like some jealous teenager or get involved with your love life, or get in the way of your love life, rather. William tells him to stop, and he sits down. And Randall tells him that he better not hear any story about his cat. William simply says, I can feel it now, Randall. This cancer is coming for me, sooner or later. I can feel it. Now Jesse can handle it. He's seen this stuff. He's been helping me make arrangements, visiting some of the best state homes, to find a good place to go before this gets really bad. And Randall asks, what are you talking about? And William says, he will not put this on Randall. I won't do that to your family. And William says, to our family, William. This is your home now. You've lived in this home. And if it comes to it, you can die in it. You're not going to be crawling under someone's porch like some dog. William emotionally says, I don't want to do this to you. And Randall very confidently says, I can take it. William tells him that the medication isn't working anymore, that it just makes him feel worse. And Randall very quietly asks, do you want to stop taking the chemo? And William says yes. Randall, with tears streaming down his eye, says okay. And he grabs onto William's hand and tells him it's going to be okay. And William makes several whimpering sounds, emotional and pain-filled sounds. Oh man, what a heartbreaking scene. Well played by Ron Cephas-Jones and Sterling K. Brown as usual. It's the one really standout scene of the episode. Just all in all fantastic. The rest of the episode doesn't live up to it. Doesn't even come close to this scene. We cut to the past where Jack is with his father, telling him that Jack is a piece of crap, that he owes money to gamblers, to disreputable people. And it's funny to me. He would rather his father think of him as a piece of shit than to tell him what he truly needs the money for. I imagine that this is for a couple of reasons. One, he doesn't want his abusive, alcoholic father in his life. He doesn't want him to have anything to do with his kids or his wife. And two, and this is the weird part, he thinks that this is the only way his father would give him money, is if he confirms the person that his father thinks he is, even though he really isn't that person at all at this point in the series. And this strategy works. He gets the money from his father. He sells his beloved car that he wouldn't sell at the beginning of the episode, buys a station wagon, and then takes Rebecca to the house he was working with at the beginning of the episode. As it turns out, the house is one that Jack bought, and it's a house that the kids lived in. Jack bought the house and fixed it up to what it currently looks like, and resolved their problems in a way that didn't involve going to live with Rebecca's mother. And so they begin their future together. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the episode. If you like this video and want to support my channel, there's a number of ways to do so. You can follow me at Korman Productions on Twitter. You can join my 2 Facebook groups, one, the Korman Productions page, as well as a This Is Us Discussing page. You can buy something from the Korman Productions store on Zazzle.com. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video. And lastly, you can subscribe to my channel. This is Dave from Korman Productions, signing off.